How's the Josh, dear students? This is my second video of online school series. In this video, I'll be explaining you chapter 1 of geography for class 10. It will be a short video and it is kind of a summary of chapter 1. What this video will do is it will increase your understanding of this chapter. Let us start. So first of all, I've shown you the classification of resources on the basis of origin, exhaustibility, ownership and status of development. So origin is biotic and abiotic. As you can see in examples, biotic is human beings, flora, fauna, fisheries, etc. Basically, biotic is the resources which are obtained from biosphere and they have life. Okay. Abiotic, those which are composed of non-living things. Now, on the basis of exhaustibility, we have renewable resources and non-renewable resources. So, you understand that renewable resources are the ones which can be renewed or kind of regenerated, replenished. So, they do not get exhausted, like solar energy, wind energy, water energy, wildlife. Non-renewable, like fossil fuels. On the basis of ownership, individual resources like house, private properties, private lands, private plantations, private water wells. Then community owned resources are like village ponds, grazing grounds, etc. And then we come to national resources. What is national resources? All the mineral resources, water resources, forests, wildlife, land, whatever we can find within the political boundaries of a country and within the territorial waters is termed as national resources. So what is territorial waters? Territorial water is the water in the ocean that lies up to 12 nautical miles, that is 22.2 kilometer from the shore. And then we have international resources. So what is international resources? Anything that is found in the open ocean. What is open ocean? Oceanic resources that lie beyond 200 nautical miles, that is 370.4 kilometers of the exclusive economic zone. That though all those resources, all those waters belong to the open ocean. So what is exclusive economic zone? You can see in this picture, this is an area that is beyond the territorial waters and it is till 200 nautical miles, that is 370.4 kilometers after the territorial waters. That is called exclusive economic zone. And anything that is beyond exclusive economic zone, that is open ocean, that is international resources. And on the basis of status of development, we have potential resources, developed resources, stock and reserve. Potential, which have not been utilized till now. Like if you go to Gujarat, there is a lot of potential for solar energy and wind energy, but till date it has not been utilized that nicely. So wind and solar energy, these are potential resources in this state. Developed resources, resources which are surveyed and their quality and quantity have been determined for utilization. Stock, there are materials in the environment which have the potential but we are not able to harness it because we do not have that technology to access this. And reserves, we have the technology but still we are not using it. And this can meet future requirements. This, like water in the dams, is a reserve. So earlier people used to believe that resources are free gifts of nature. So that is why they kept overusing it indiscriminately, means without giving it much thinking. So this has led to depletion of resources, okay, and also this has led to accumulation of resources in few hands, that is making some few people of the society extra rich and others poor. And also you can see what are the consequences of such indiscriminate exploitation of resources. Crises like global warming, ozone layer depletion, pollution, environmental pollution and land degradation. Now we come to sustainable development. So what is sustainable development? Sustainable economic development means development should take place without damaging the environment, and development in the present should not compromise with the needs of the future generations. Now we come to resource planning. So what is resource planning? You can see that there are some regions in India which have very rich deposits of minerals, and they are rich in certain resources and deficient in certain other resources. Similarly, there are regions which have everything, which are self-sufficient in terms of resources, but still development is not taking place there. To counter such issues, resource planning is required for overall development of particular regions and of the country. Okay, and we all do understand why conservation of resources is required, right? Because overuse and irrational consumption of anything will lead to socio-economic and environmental problems, like wastage of water at certain places. Now people are facing scarcity of water. The groundwater has depleted in many cities in India, many cities and towns. So land is a resource because everything depends on it, right? The transport, communication, industries, agriculture, our life, flora and fauna, right? So now we will see the land utilization in India. So 43% of total area of India, total geographical area, that is total reported geographical area of India is plain, and we use plains for agriculture and industries, right? 30% is mountainous areas. So mountains are there, so we have good flow of river around the year, and there is tourism. And 27% is plateau region, and there are rich reserves of minerals, fossil fuels and forests. So in this figure we will compare what has happened after some planning, resource planning, and after people have become aware, after the government has started taking appropriate measures and people also have become aware. We can see that the forest area was 18.11% in 1960 to 61, and now it has increased in 2014 to 15. It has increased to 23.3%, which is a very good sign. And similarly, the barren and unculturable wasteland was 18.11%, which has decreased to 5.5%. So with the help of technology, we have been able to improve the quality of land. Area under non-agricultural uses like houses, industries, companies, buildings, infrastructure. So definitely we can see that it is increased from 4.95% to 8.7%. The purple one is permanent pasture and grazing land, which has decreased from 4.71% to 3.3%. Then area under miscellaneous tree, crops and groves, like the mangroves in the Sundarban Delta and other places also. This area has decreased from 1.5% to 1%. Cultivable wasteland, which has been left uncultivated for more than 5 years. This has decreased from 6.23% to 4%. Fallow other than current fallow is, for last 1 to 5 years, it has been left uncultivated. So there is a very slight increase, just from 3.5% to 3.6%. Current fallow, which has been left without cultivation for 1 or less than 1 year. and this one has increased from 3.73% to 4.9%. Our net sown area has changed slightly. It has decreased from 46.26% to 45.5%. So net sown area is total area under agriculture, and area sown more than once in an agriculture year plus net sown area is called gross cropped area. Now we will see the types of soil. So the first one is alluvial soil. It occupies the largest part of the our country, and it is the most fertile soil, ideal for agriculture, and mostly it is found in northern plains of Ganga, Indus, Brahmaputra. Why? Because these rivers flow throughout the year and they bring silt and keep depositing it. The old alluvial is called Bangar and the new alluvial is called Khadar, and Khadar soil is more fertile than Bangar soil. Okay. Basically, alluvial soil contains very nice proportion of potash, phosphoric acid and lime. So this makes it ideal for growing number of crops like sugarcane, paddy, wheat and pulses and some other cereal crops. So you can see the areas where alluvial soil is found. This green one is alluvial soil, light green one, and we can see that it is found in the river plains where rivers flow, not the plateau but the plains. So we have the northern plains, the great northern plains, and some parts of Rajasthan and Gujarat. Now coming to laterite soil. Now we will see black soil, and then after that we will see red and yellow soil, and then we will move on to laterite soil, arid soil and forest soil. So starting with black soil is also called regur soil or black cotton soil because cotton is majorly grown in this type of soil. This type of soil is basically made from weathering of rocks that was formed as a result of volcanic activity. That is, the rocks that were made from lava. So the breaking of those rocks, the erosion of those rocks has caused this type of soil to form. That is where the black color of this soil comes from. This kind of soil is rich in soil nutrients like calcium carbonate, magnesium, potash and lime, and it is poor in phosphorus and nitrogen. There is a very unique property of this type of soil, that is, in hot weather the cracks develop on the surface of this type of soil and it causes natural aeration of the soil, and this adds to the quality of the soil. The clay content is very high in this type of soil, so that is why it is sticky in nature. Because of this, when the weather is dry and hot, on the surface the cracks develop. As you can see, this black soil is found in parts of Gujarat, the Saurashtra region, that is the Kathiawadi plateau especially, the Maharashtra, especially the Vidarbha region, Vindhyan hills, Kamur hills, parts of Karnataka plateau. So as you can see, red soil is found in eastern and southern parts of the Deccan plateau. And how is it formed? It's formed because of weathering of crystalline igneous rocks in areas of low rain. It is normally rich in lime, phosphate, iron and potash, and it supports many different types of crops. You can see in the picture, it is found in parts south of the Ganga plain here and in parts of Orissa, Chhattisgarh. Where does the red color come from? It comes from the diffusion of iron in crystalline and metamorphic rocks, and when it is in hydrated form, it is yellow in color. Laterite soil is found in tropical and subtropical regions. It's found in areas where there is alternate wet and dry season, that is heavy rainfall and then followed by dry season. So because of heavy rainfall, there is leaching process happening in this type of soil. So heavy rainfall causes the minerals to go downward. So iron and aluminium are found in the upper layer of this type of soil and silica moves down. This type of soil is acidic in nature, that is its pH is less than 6, and this kind of soil is very prone to erosion. And also it is very deficient in plant nutrients. This type of soil is found in eastern parts of Telangana, Eastern Ghats, parts of Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan. Very few places this type of soil is found. Then arid soil. Arid soil is red to brown in color with sandy texture, and the nature of this kind of soil is saline, that is high salt content. As you can see, this type of soil is found in desert areas like western parts of Rajasthan, and this type of soil lacks humus and moisture. Why? Because of dry climate and high temperature, there the evaporation rate is faster. Now coming to forest soils. This type of soil is found in hilly areas where there is sufficient rainforests available. The texture varies according to the environment, according to the mountain environment. Okay. So in the valley side they are loamy and silty, and in the upper slopes the texture is coarse. Now this picture shows you there are two pictures. One is showing you soil erosion and the other is showing you terrace farming. Soil erosion is loss of the top cover of the soil, upper layer of the soil, which is normally rich in nutrients. So it gets eroded, that is washed away or blown away because of wind or water forces on top of that, human activities add to this erosion like deforestation, overgrazing, mining, construction. So on the slopes of hilly regions, on the slopes of hills, plowing in a vertical way like up and down along the slopes will add to soil erosion. That's why what is recommended is contour plowing, that is plowing along the contour lines that decelerates the flow of water down the slopes. And when steps are cut down on the slope, they are called terraces, and this kind of cultivation is called terrace cultivation or terrace farming. Also, when large fields are divided into strips and strips of grass are left to grow between the crops, it stops the force of wind, it lessens the force of wind, and the wind erosion is thus lessened. This method is known as strip cropping. Shelter belts also work like this, that is planting lines of trees to create a shelter that helps in lessening the impact of wind on erosion. The shelter belts contribute to stabilization of sand dunes. So all these are methods to prevent soil erosion.